Hi, my name is Phil Shapiro. I work at a public library and I think a lot about metadata. What I want to talk to you today about is the governmental interest in better metadata on social media. And when I talk about social media, I'm pretty much talking about Twitter. There are other social media services, but the one that I use and the one that I think is most relevant for this talk is Twitter. So Twitter is a company that started with the intent of making money like every company. And one of the consequences of them starting the service is that there's better communication between individuals. They came up with an interesting, good model of the 140 character limit, but what they haven't executed well on is metadata. The best that Twitter has for metadata is hashtags, and hashtags was invented a long time ago. Twitter's now 10 years old almost, and hashtags has been around since the beginning, and hashtags just doesn't work as a metadata. I'll tell you why. Because the hashtag is limited to the same field as the metadata, so everything gets squeezed into that 140 characters, and therefore people have to squeeze in their metadata. It feels a little bit like the early days of MS-DOS when a file name had to be 8 characters long. And so you were limited and you couldn't be expressive. So we need much better metadata on Twitter. And we need it for our whole economy because we're living in a knowledge economy. And in a knowledge economy, the way that we connect up ideas and people with each other, that really matters. And I think what we need is a separate field for metadata. Think of it this way. The person who posts a tweet, they may or may not have the best ideas of the metadata for that tweet. So we need a separate field, and we need metadata to be added after a tweet has been posted. Because the very best metadata, the best descriptors about a tweet could occur to somebody who is not the originator of the tweet. Think of it also, newspapers have people write an article and then somebody else writes the headline. So that we're pooling many minds to make the best possible communication happen. Think of it also this way. We don't want to constrain metadata to the 140 character limit, because here's an analogy. What would happen if the contents of a book were confined to the front cover of the book? Authors would be up in arms. They would go out with pitchforks at midnight. If not that, they would find some other kind of very visually graphical metaphor to express their disapproval. Or in the same vein, how about if we had to shoehorn all the index of a book onto the back cover of a book? That just doesn't make any sense, right? So we need to be thinking better metadata, and we need to do whatever needs to be done to make that happen. If I were the chief executive officer of Twitter, what I would do today is call up the United States chief technology officer. Her phone number is in the phone book. Not literally in the phone book, but metaphorically, you just contact her. And you need to have a nice conversation about the value of communication infrastructures in a knowledge economy, and what your vision is for Twitter, and what your vision is for an information service that meets more people's needs. Think of all the people who might have been using a communication service, but the communication service is too chaotic, because there's just too much information flowing to them that doesn't meet their needs, and they're not able to easily filter it out. They might work 2 jobs. If you work 2 jobs, you don't have time to spend on social media trying to filter out what information is relevant or not relevant to your life. So if we had better metadata, then more information flows to the people who want it, and they also don't get the information that they don't want. So I envision a world where more people get more of the information they want and less of the information they don't want. And what happens then? we'll have happier people, more businesses, a thriving economy, and we'll also have a more successful Twitter. So I hope folks think about this idea, people who are not on Twitter, people who are on Twitter, people who are managers of Twitter. We all need to be thinking about what is the value of metadata and how can we bring better metadata to our social media.